Good evening and welcome to another episode of Africa's Next. My name is Dama Cummins. On today's show, we promised to give you an exciting interview, a mentor and entrepreneur. He goes by the name Dr. Yaw Amponsah Adoo. He's a proficient management professional with multidisciplinary skill sets covering collegiate instruction, 10 plus years of education, training, and organizational leadership and professional development. His research interests focus on how employee work, motivation, and well-being are affected by organizational change and uncertain employment relations. Dr. Adoo was an assistant professor of management at the College of Adult and Professional Program, that is CAP, at Salter University, a private co-educational liberal arts university located in Rome, Georgia, United States. The Christian University was founded in 1873 and is historically affiliated with the Georgia Baptist Convention. Currently, he is the founder and managing partner of Education and Management Consult, LLC, expert providing innovative organizational development and training, consulting services and solutions to business and government that need strategic edge. And Dr. Adoo continues to teach and currently serves as an online faculty member at the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at the University of the Virgin Islands. And he is the host of the Ability Project podcast, a podcast medium dedicated to sharing useful information and stories that lead to successful professional opportunities in life. And over the past years, one of the major things that we have seen, or that has brought a lot of spotlight on Dr. has been he published 2 articles that provided recommendation of the public policy. And the biggest one was the 11-point plan, Dr. Baumia means a rejoinder to the 10-point plan for solving graduate youth employment in Ghana. This and more is what the man we're speaking to today has for us. We are going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we get into the interview with Dr. Yaw Amponsah Adoo.
Africa is on the precipice of a breakout onto the world stage in a way and manner that has never happened before. And at Africa's Next, we are poised to enable this advancement. We believe in mentoring the next superpower generation of entrepreneurs to enable them push Africa onto the world superpower stage. At Africa's Next, we are pairing seasoned mentors, industry experts and professionals, policymakers and social change advocates, etc., with upcoming entrepreneurs across Africa to offer mentoring opportunities. Mentees stand a chance to access funding after successfully completing their mentoring program. Join the discussions on our social media handles at Africa's Next XPG on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and be part of our privileged entrepreneurs who get to be mentored by the world's best. Welcome to Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation.
Back from the commercial break, it's still live on Africa's Next, empowering Africa's next super generation. Today on the show, we are speaking to a guest, and I'll let him introduce himself. When we're done, I'll tell you something that he and I share in common. Dr. Yaw Adoo, good evening and welcome to Africa's Next.
Well, the pleasure is mine. I'm glad to be here.
Dr. Adoo, tell us more about yourself. I've read a beautiful bio of yourself, and I have to say, like, this all what you've achieved are supposed to be achieved in 200 years, but you have been able to do this in this short time. Tell us more about yourself, sir.
Well, first and foremost, I have to give a lot of kudos to the Africa's Next and what you guys are trying to do. I think it's very laudable. I was attracted to what you have to offer because I think we have aligning projects and competencies and things of that nature. So I'm very, very happy to be here, and hopefully the information that we will share together, it will make a difference in the listeners' professional proficiencies. So in a nutshell, I'm a learner. You know, I'm a fun learner. I like to learn a lot. I like to read. I like to learn new things every day. And in so doing, I like to share the information that I get. So because I choose to want to learn, I know the value that learning has to offer and how it benefits people overall. So I like to share some of the, well, almost by everything that I learn. You know, I've had a lot of people say a lot of good things and a lot of challenging things because of it. So yeah, based on my backdrop as a learner, and wanted to share what I learned, it led me to who I became today, as an educator, as a businessman, as a mentor, as a mentee, because I have mentors as well.
Okay. Wow.
So, you always need mentors. So, because learning never stops. So,
True.
yeah.
Never stop. I think this is as modest as it can be. And with the long bio that I read, I was expecting something wonderful. But this is Dr. Adoo for you. Doctor, you are Santa Clausian.
I am, and proudly so. I'm also a Liverpool fan, so
today's happy day for you.
I've been a Liverpool fan for a very long time, since my goodness, since the 1988, 1989, when the glory days were here. So
okay, when you won your last trophy, your last Premier League trophy, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it was 11,016 days ago.
That's far away. But that's the main reason why we are here today. We are here to talk about entrepreneurship. We are here to talk about mentoring. We are here to learn your own ways. We are here to learn from the learner.
Right.
So let's delve into our interview today. One of the major things that you have your hands on has to do with human capital. And the Human Capital Report 2015 defines the nation's human capital endowment as the skills and capacity that reside in people that are put into productive use. What do you think are the three most important factors that drive human resource capital development in Africa?
That's a really good question. There are several. I should have chosen a lot, but I think there are three that stand out in these COVID times: are recruiting the best talent, managing and developing that talent, and optimizing talent to maximize business value. It's not in that particular order, but at the end of the day, every business, every entity is looking at best ways by which they can add value, right? So the entity will decide what value means to them. For example, in the United States, many big for-profit organizations, in order for them to make money, their shareholders determine the type of profits they want, and that profit determines where CEOs decide what to do with their value in terms of hiring and firing and things of that nature. And they also look at what customers, the end product, those who receive the services and the goods, will determine how profits can be marginalized or how profits can be assessed, so to speak. So the three, again, are recruiting the best talent. Now in Africa, it's a continent full of very young people. I think on average, young folks are up to, they range between the ages of 20 and 34 years old. And they are loaded with significant talent. And, if you have to look into human resource capital, you'll be more interested in how the young talent can totally understand what the value of the end user, being the customers, and then curtail businesses and services to fit them.
Wow. I think this is going to be an interesting interview. I promise you that. I'd like to still on the human resource bit, human resource capital a bit. Let's talk about the investment. That's human resource capital investment. And it's one of the most profound ways to advance the growth of economies. Africa is far, far behind in this resource development. What would you say is the reason why we find ourselves in that situation?
That statement, it depends on whose ear it gets to, right?
Okay.
I am of the belief that Africa is not far, far behind. I am of the belief that the progress is on pause button, right? And there are several reasons why we are not moving as fast as we can. So there are two that actually stand out in terms of, the definition of being behind. I think one is man-made. There are several man-made challenges that actually force talent or people to not have the propensity to have value. The other is not nature-made. we are currently experiencing one of the nature-made challenges, which is COVID, right? So, we had a time where Ebola and SARS riddled the entire continent, I would say the western part of it. But now the man-made has always been very insidious. It's been like quite chronic. We have brain drain situations, and I think I may, to a degree, represent that, where true talent left the shores of Africa to the western part of the world to add value that way. But I'm of a different brand because I'm coming back home, right, this decade, to be able to add value to the continent in so many different ways. Another is hunger and poverty. So there are so many people who are very hungry for several reasons. And, and that hunger is not nurturing human capital as much as it can. The other is inequality across board, inequality among men and women, boys and girls. There are certain parts of Africa where girls are not being encouraged or allowed to be in the classroom to tap into their best of their capacities. And terrorism is also another challenge that is faced on the continent. We have local and ethnic religious conflicts. When we talk about religion, many people, in my opinion, put a pause button on it and not activate it. You have talented folks who are very good at actually doing a lot of things, but when it comes to religion, they almost go to the mandate that you don't challenge God. But you need to be able to live, and you want to make a difference, and you want to add value to yourself. You will need to be able to question some of the diatribes and some of the ideologies that actually guide you. So, and last but not the least will be bribery and corruption. Now, it comes in so many different forms. So, the man-made and the and nature-made are the hindrances that actually, come in play when you talk about human capital investment or human resource development.
Wow, this is many. So then, Doctor, from where we sit right now, then Africa needs to put in a lot of work. Yes, most certainly. Now, that work has to be, it has to start from the self. There will be a time where we have to start thinking about not allowing the government to lead us to be the best versions of ourselves, right? The government's role, in my opinion, is to lay the foundation by which human capital can run on. If you want to, for example, you're in Ghana, you want to go from, I would say, Accra to Akuse or Accra to Ho, you need the Adome Bridge, right? So the Adome Bridge, the job of the Adome Bridge is for the government not only to make it, but also to sustain it with tax CDs and things of that nature. But people have to be able to buy vehicles, do, products and services to go back and forth. So that's how it really should be. The mind shouldn't really be on the government per se, but the people have to be encouraged to be able to tap into it. That's, I believe very strongly in that. Now, as a continent, one of the fundamental missing links in relation to human resource capital development has to do with relevant, advanced, and developmental education. And we Africans believe that these are some of the few things that we need to put in place to make sure Africa as a continent, we develop our human resource capital. Can you throw more light on why education in Africa is just not cutting it right for our growth?
Well, respectfully, I disagree.
Wow. Okay.
The notion that Africa, education in Africa is not cutting right for growth. We live in a time now where folks are tapping into their skill sets with what they have, the natural resources around them, right? Now, if we want to talk about the role of government in this, that will be a different conversation. But according to the Africa America Institute, the State of Education in Africa conference, which was held in Lagos, Nigeria, the conference suggested that the African continent is now home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. Okay, and Africa is also the world's most youthful continent. Today, nearly 50% of Africans are under the age of 15. Okay, so there is massive potential there. Africa's young people are future leaders and driving force behind sustainable development. And I would also say that there is promise to have a solution-driven conversation with policymakers, educators, administrators, philanthropists, and those who come interested in capacity building, okay? There's also promise to elevate and mainstream conversation on education as a key component of economic development. There's a need to hold public officers accountable. You know, I believe we are in election year, yes, and the way we used to do things, I think that it's about time that we change some of the way we used to do things, right? Or some of the way we do things at this moment. What do I mean? When we have to understand the notion as a people that when we have elected people to serve us, they have to serve our interests. So we shouldn't settle for less, and we should always question what comes to the table. Education can do that. There's also a need to hold public officers accountable with respect to thought leadership. What that means is we have to allow ourselves the opportunity to think, you know, to critically think, to make mistakes, to hold, to hold somebody accountable means you have to have some level of solutions to, not only backing of, there's problem here, there's problem there, potholes here, no dams there, no school here, but there has to be, the people have to be encouraged to have solutions to bring to the table. And the solutions that come should not be party aligned, right? We have to find a way to bridge that. Education can bridge that gap, because education has a very unique way of actually simmering through some of these nuances in public to make sure that people actually activate their skill sets and competencies.
So with all what you've said, we as Africans, do we need our own educational structure or systems completely devoid of the Western nation or European influences?
I wouldn't say our own, I would say reformed.
Reformed, right? Okay.
I think that the reformation should start with, there are so many ways that we can look into this, the reform, to reform our educational system. I 100% believe that it should start from the classroom, okay? I also believe that it should start from kindergarten, right? Or pre-K. I also believe that it should involve families. In fact, I would, urge, whoever is listening, the government or other stakeholders, to look into the curricula that we currently have, to not make it generally, basic, but to be customized depending on region or depending on, we have to have a means by which we assess how students' educational levels are, and more importantly, reform the teaching model so that teachers will come understanding that everybody who is taught can learn. Everybody can, take canes out of the classroom, but everybody can learn, and that teachers can have different curricular and syllabi or teaching materials to sustain that. So not necessarily scrapping what we have, but actually reforming it based on region, based on people's competencies, based on the money which is poured into it, based on the budget from the government, based on stakeholders like corporate entities who will support educational systems. There are so many different ways you really can look into it. My company does a lot of consulting in this arena, and there's no one size fits all, but for sure there's a need to improve systems that demand a maintenance culture as well, right? So if you want to actually teach, the classrooms have to be equipped. It has to be equipped with temperature, with temperature. It has to be equipped with tools in terms of chairs and tables. It has to be equipped in terms of, safety and security. Now that we have COVID times, they have to have all kinds of means by which it can be supported. So if people pay taxes, the taxes should go there. If governments and businesses pay taxes, the taxes should be curtailed that way. If we have a minister who is a minister of education, he has to be somebody who totally understands these. If we have people in place in terms of leaders, they have to have a background of the challenge so they can lead intuitively.
So that means with the reform bit, we don't need any educational independence.
You know, independence is good. You know, or independence of any sort is good.
Okay.
But the responsibility that comes with independence is what people may not understand, right? So if you have independence, you know, we've had independence since 1957 politically, but we haven't been able to totally nurture our independence. I mean, Ghana as a country, for example, has about close to 30 million people. The state of Georgia that I live in has more than 45 million people. That's one state, right?
Whoa.
So if you put a country in a state and we can't seem to measure and you know, all the assets that we have to totally fit the people around us, then there's a need for people to question why that is so. Now, in order to question, they will have to understand that independence generally means there's a responsibility that comes with it. You know, if you want to tie your shoes, if you want to wear shoes with lace, there's an art to, you know, to really putting this on. The lace doesn't come magically on the feet. You have to know how to weave these things. That's part of responsibility. That's part of educational independence. So yes, we have independence of so many sorts. Yes, we have several means by which we can actually get this through, but we may not have concretely the resources which are totally nurtured to sustain the independence that we have education-wise. So yeah, education gives us a knowledge of the world around us and changes it into something better. It develops us into a perspective of looking at life very differently with different opinions. Now, the hope lies in converging children's skills, streamlining programs. I'm big on starting from scratch. I'm big on starting from kindergarten, right? Because that's where everything starts. Children don't have to be, their spirit do not have to be dampened when they're trying to, you know, usurp leadership skills, for example. So yeah, you know, to answer your question again directly, educational independence requires a lot of responsibility to make sure that the independence is sustained.
So you said still on education, but you said education as a tool. Do you think Africa, we can change the narrative of poverty, backwardness, underdeveloped status, that, and a lot of which is being said about Africa? Can we use education as a tool to change that?
Yes, it starts with the way we perceive things. It starts with the mind. So if you perceive yourself as poor, you know, you may be talking about resource poor, but there is opportunity poor, and there's an opportunity wealth. So when there's a community, you know, when there's a community starting from the home, when the community believes that individuals within the community have the capacity to go to the next level, if there's that generalized belief that we can do it, then of course it means that it's 50% of the challenges are taken care of, including poverty. So there's a need to support and enhance the design and development of high quality student learning experiences, especially now in the COVID times. We have to know what quality means, and we have to measure what our definition of quality means to other countries similar to us, to other educational systems similar to us, and see over time, 5 to 10 years, how good is our quality. Can our quality measure against those who have more money than us? Can it measure against the benchmarks used by other entities? You know, so it starts with us, like I said earlier. You know, we have to, as Africans, have to understand that the way we perceive the narrative, the way we perceive the negative stories, the way we look at it has to be refined, has to change. You know, rather than looking at poverty, look at, yes, maybe structurally or economically, I may be poor at this moment, but it doesn't mean that I will remain poor forever. It also may mean that, okay, what can I do to get out of the poverty myself without the government coming in play? You know, and if the government is to come into play, does my vote count? Or even if I don't vote for the guy who is in power, will the government understand that Ghanaians are for all Ghanaians, whether I voted for you or not? Or, so that we move the benchmark. And I know what I am possibly suggesting may be a far cry at this moment, but it is definitely, among others, the things that we really need to do to shape the way we think to move forward, to get out of this conundrum.
Throughout the interview so far, these are the words I've picked up: quality, early childhood. Do you think quality and holistic early childhood development education is vital to grow the human resource capital?
Yes. The definition of quality, like I mentioned earlier, has to look at the way we feel when we finish after Aquaba, after you land, after you finish what you want. Like when you're eating your favorite meal, right? You are not looking, it depends on whether before you start eating, it depends on the level by which you are hungry, right? It depends on the level by which you are hungry. If you are extremely hungry, economics will tell you that after a while, it's not even about how good the food tastes, okay? It means you just want to fill the belly, right? But if the food gets into your belly, your body systems change. You may be sluggering. You may feel asleep. You may not be as productive as you can, right? So, but you have to figure out the food that you put in your body. Is it the type of food that will sustain you over a period of time? Is it healthy enough? Do you know what healthy is? Is it the type of food that will help you burn calories, or will not make you gain weight? So that's what I'm really talking about, quality here. So we have to decide what quality means for us, and then design tools using resources at home and maybe from abroad to fit into that quality and move that quality to the next level. And then when we get to the next level, if we are to get to the next level, we have to measure that against our ECOWAS, for example, or other ECOWAS educational systems, right? Or perhaps all of Africa. Our educational level, is it the same as every other nation, on the sub-Saharan African continent? Or is it the same as European standards? Is it the same as the Chinese? Is it the same or comparable? So that when we are actually measuring our benchmarks, we know that the educational system can get there.
So with the benchmarks and how we can get our standards higher relation to education in the African continent, what should the African government focus on, especially regards to the reforms that we have mentioned throughout the whole interview?
Okay, that's a good question. There are several ways it can be looked at, right?
Okay.
The primary, secondary, vocational, technical, and tertiary education should be reassessed, okay? All of these should be reassessed. All the successes we have chalked since 1957 until 2020, July, does not mean anything right now.
Yeah, true.
Nothing. Okay, so what is more important is where we are, we have to be 100% truthful to ourselves. We don't have to, tell ourselves we've done a good job, and it's not up to us to do that. The results suggest so. The way our students from the primary level to the secondary level to the vocational level to technical level and tertiary level, are they really comparable? Can they compete? Can we use our own skills, our own resources with the education we get to be able to add value to ourselves, to add value to the work we do, to the country, to the GDP? Can we really do that? Can we be honest about that? Because currently, we still have ways to go. We have a lot of students who graduate but don't find the right type of jobs. You see, so there's that major vacuum between graduation with serious talent and then no jobs for them to fill in. So, yeah, that's what I think.
So what are the key areas that you think the government should invest in the most regards to the transformation education?
Key areas. Okay, I can come up with 4. I can come up with 4. And awesome. The first will be that the office of the president must include a cabinet position headed by 2 millennials. Okay. Now you're talking about transformative education. I believe that the two millennials one has to be a male and one has to be a female.
Okay.
And it should be selected nationally from public and private universities. That's the first one. This is huge because when you do that, when you have from the office of the president, somebody who actually lives and breathes education and is having all these challenges and is a representative sample of many millions of people their age, they can directly tell the president exactly what's really going on. Okay. The second will be to require that all children complete a full course of primary schooling in line to achieve universal primary education. Okay. Members of parliament must be held accountable by reporting progress or lack of progress in parliament and to their constituents. That's the second idea. The third idea is to incentivize parental involvement in student enhancement. What that means is if a student is to get a letter grade A, it means that the parents were 100% involved in so many ways. So we can have a curricula to involve parents to be part of the success of the student, okay? And then the fourth is that we have to require mandatory STEM education at all kindergarten and primary education levels with proper education tools and assets. So these are transformative, okay? So these are the 4 that I think can be considered.
And you're talking about millennials now, and one of the major things that this current generation we have is technology. Do you think the current upsurge in technological advancement with regards to education can help position Africa onto the quality, when we talk about quality, can it position Africa onto that standard that we want it to get to relating to education?
Not yet. It's on the right track. It just got on the wheels of when the train has now been put on the rail, but it hasn't been cranked. Okay, so the train is ready to go, but right, it needs fuel, it needs people, it needs a destination to go. That's how I perceive it, right? So, and you have to also keep in mind that there's no issue with motivating students to use technology in education. Ghanaians and Africans and African learners are excited about learning, are excited about what technology can bring to the table. The challenge, though, is that the system as we have it is not vast enough, or it's almost like monopolistic or oligopolistic in nature, where very, very few companies control the airspace or control the internet space, especially in these pandemic times. And then because these few companies, and they know who they are, control the airspace, they are not incentivized to compete aggressively to cater to the needs of all learners, right? So based on best practices, I also know that many parts of Africa, learners use WhatsApp, and then WhatsApp has different features by which it can help to educate and to provide learning or step-by-step approach to teaching learners. I am part of an organization called Erratic Truth Foundation. And among other things, we are partnering with an educational institution, tertiary educational institution here in the United States. And this is work in progress, to craft an MOU to be able to offer a streamlined technological pathway to schools, select schools, so that it will serve as a benchmark for others to see how fluent it can be by bypassing some of the major technology firms in Ghana. All right. There's also a need to properly integrate mobile learning, as we have it at the current moment, because of several light-offs or several other infrastructural challenges that we currently have. It makes it difficult for that to happen. Keep in mind, though, Ms. McCall, that there are so many different things that can be considered, but in order for this to really push in Ghana and many parts of Africa, there is also a need for political will. The government has to buy into it. So there has to be those who lobby for the government to totally understand the value of these measures, to be able to pass it on to people, and in essence, make money off it. So yeah, there are several ways of looking at how technology advancement can actually push this agenda.
Do you think transformational leadership education is vital to Africa's development and growth in this 21st century? And if we intend to lead the world, do you think we need that?
Yes, we do. I think we have some of it, but we don't have all of it.
Oh, okay.
We have some of it. Yes, because at this point, before COVID, we needed close to 100% of transformational agenda, right? But with COVID in the picture, and us not currently having I would say a medication or drug to really deal with the virus, there is also a need for a reformed type of transformational leadership. I call it adaptive leadership. Right. Adaptive leadership. What that means is you need a dose of transformational leader, somebody who will come and say, we used to do it this way, or we don't do it anymore, right? We also need an autocratic leader. That same individual or a group of folks have to be autocratic leaders. What that means is they say, the boss says so. There has to be somebody who can really put their foot on the ground, okay? And we also need a charismatic leader. With that charisma, you can be able to use politics to get agenda moving. So the three, I call it adaptive leadership. Now, these are some of the things this transformational leadership, particularly in the field of education, can happen. This type of leadership requires a lot of patience because some communities are slow to change. So, and we have to totally understand that, in order for us to embrace new ideas, there are certain institutions that will not, like GES, for example, okay, Ghana Education Service is not going to stand for it. Ministry of Education may, but we have to know that if we decide to want to move forward, it requires some level of transformational agenda. So there's a need for patience. There's also a need for empathy and sympathy to stakeholders, to communities, and to people themselves. There's also the need to make sure that subject matter experts are actively listening, right, to teams and communities. There's also a need to use reliable data and information to lead. The data which is coming up should not be a hoax. Okay, it has to be translated into all the languages so that people can understand that in order for us to move the bandwidth of getting to the next level of education, they 100% know it with the languages they speak. They also have to be creative, okay, to try new things. And in doing so, it's okay to fail, right? And then the people have to make a decision as to the failure may not mean that they are failures. It means that they haven't gotten to the end game yet, right? So folks have 4 years in office and they have a really good agenda. It would be nice to give them another 4 years to finish it off, right? Or if they can't make it, the person who comes in has to be able to continue with that agenda and not throw it away, okay? There's also a need for people to demand effective feedback, okay? So effective feedback means it makes sense, okay? That inflation, when inflation is going up and when gas prices are going up and it's affecting people getting to classrooms in a timely manner, there has to be somebody who to say, it is my fault and we're trying to do something about it. We have to have critical thinking skills. We have to be intentionally flexible, okay? And finally, I think that teaching and mentoring teams within all these spectrums are necessary because they are new. And you need people who have to be encouraged to push on with that transformative agenda.
Now, with all the knowledge that you have said so far in the interview, do you think Africa can rise to the superpower status through education? And how are we going to do that?
Africa, in my opinion, is already a superpower.
Okay.
The challenge is that it's a sleeping superpower, or I would say a lazy superpower. Okay. If Nigeria as a country plays its cards right, it could be Africa's only global superpower, because Nigeria has the biggest economy to support itself. Nigeria has the military budget to support itself, and Nigeria has a fair record of regional engagement, right, through their leadership bandwidth. But there are other countries within Africa that can also place a very strong second. Algeria is one, Ethiopia is another, South Africa, and Egypt. Ghana is in my opinion, is still work in progress. We haven't gotten there yet because of the size of our budget, the size of our military, the size of our natural and intellectual resources. You know, compared to Nigeria, it's not the same. Okay, so but we still have per capita the volume and the width to compete. South Africa, I mentioned earlier, is the only country as a member of the BRICS. BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China. You know, they are one of them, and they have some of the institutions already established to compete. But to answer your question, what will it take for Africa to become a superpower? Africa has about 54 countries and some regional territories, right? In order for us to do that, we have to look at some issues related to peace and security, political affairs, infrastructure and energy, social affairs, right? By social affairs is really a big thing right now, right? So, and especially we have to start looking into understanding gender orientation roles. You know, there are so many amongst us who, you know, have to really, there has to be that conversation and that stigma discussed within communities. When that can happen, people can now be free to be themselves, to study better, to get better grades, you know, things along those lines. There's also a need for us to look at trade and industry, right? You know, the city of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, has the Grand Indak Dam project. That dam can actually fend and feed all of South Africa and then some. You know, that can also, that energy can be turned, and you know, the value of that energy and the dollars and the resources that generates out of it can sustain the continent. We also have to look at rural economy in agriculture. We have to harness that to the fullest degree. I don't think we do much of that yet. Yes, we do host a lot of National Farmers Day, but it's almost like pomp and pageantry rather than institutionally structured you know, measures by which, you know, students from University of Cape Coast or elsewhere can actually have the capital, for example, to tap into the skills that they get. And of course, we have to look at the economic affairs of Africa. And by that, I mean African commodities strategy, African continental free trade area, African passport and free movement of people, women, gender and development, civil society. There are certain norms within our society that has to be squashed, including some religious situations that has to be squashed, okay? Because we have to be able to disentangle ourselves from that to be able to move forward. African economic reform also is needed. African financial institutions needs to be strengthened, because when our currencies, in fact, we have to actually really streamline our currency. I think the AU is doing something along those lines to meet with the SBG, right? But if we can find a way to streamline our currencies to be a few, you know, that can really be helpful, because the 3 or 4 currencies can really compete with each other and strengthen to compete against the dollar and the renminbi, right? Cybersecurity is also an essence that has to be tapped into. You know, African Virtual E-University, because now we talk about education, we have to look at new ways by which we can provide learning virtually and also remotely, because there's a difference between both of them. So we have to invest in these things, and hopefully when these are also discussed, every leader, every parliamentarian, every governor has to have somebody on their attaché who understands these things and break it to their level to push their political will to make it happen.
Wow. So far, I can say we're having an in-depth interview with Dr. Yaw Amponsah Adoo, This is Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation. Once a big thank you to Break the Silence and Voice to the Nation for being our past sponsors. Thank you to you, special audience who are tuned in all across the world. My name is Dr Amponsah. We are going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're talking to our guest about the biggest and most discussed topic in 2020. We all know what it is, COVID-19, coronavirus. Stay tuned. Remember, you're supposed to send a message to our various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, indicating the mentor you would like to be paired with to learn a lot from. We're back after this short commercial break.
Africa's emergence onto the world superpower stage has been in waiting for long. We believe that mentoring entrepreneurs and leaders to push Africa to that next level will cause Africa to break out onto that stage. This is why at Africa's Next, we believe in pairing mentees with seasoned mentors and industry experts, professionals and policymakers, social change leaders, and many more who are ready to push the next generation forward to make this happen. Meet your mentors and get mentored to go higher. Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation.
From the commercial break, still live on Africa's Next, and today on the show we are speaking to Dr. Yaw Amponsah Adoo. Sir, welcome back from the commercial break.
Sure, it's good to be here.
So let's talk about the most talked about topic in 2020, COVID-19. How do you think COVID-19 affects education across the globe and most importantly, Africa?
You know, COVID is a pandemic that has been rearing its head for a very long time.
I see.
Some countries paid attention to it, or I would say some communities or nation states actually started looking. You know, there was a lot of noise, I would say soft noise, about the possibility that there will be something major like this, either chemical or health or security. So it was very, very, very hard for companies and communities to do it across the world. But if you limit it to education by itself, globally, yes, the qualities and advantages of face-to-face instruction is forever missed. Many learners work best, and several studies suggest this, that when you have people within a classroom setting, they work better because they can see and feel. They can measure into the emotions of people, right? Or other learners. They learn best with people. They form relationship. In fact, if you are in secondary or maybe tertiary education, some people staff their families through, you know, one-on-one or face-to-face instruction. They can't do that like what we're doing right now, right? There are also concerns that the gap between the high and low achieving students will become larger. And this is the global perspective. Teachers are now scrambling to adapt content for an online platform. Some countries don't even know which platforms to use or which is best or which is effective for their students or the resources they have. Students themselves are faced with isolation, anxiety about a deadly virus with no cure, as well as uncertainty about the future. How COVID-19 may affect achievement includes research on effects of out-of-school time on learning due to absenteeism, right? So when students are going back and forth, not to talk about whether institutions or countries or regions or cities or local governments or people have the PPEs, right? They have the masks to be able to, you know, use within a closed setting. If you live in a boarding school in Ghana or any other parts of Africa, you know, it's a little bit different. Yeah. You have to deal with a lot for a 12-year-old or up to maybe 17-year-old, right? To stay in school for 3 years, there are so many things you are learning. So COVID globally affects people and students that way. Now, from an African perspective, as a result of COVID-19, educational institutions are having to rethink their approach, becoming more digitally led and shifting to online platforms. According to the UNESCO,
89% of students in sub-Saharan Africa do not have access to household computers, and 82% of the 89% lack internet access. You see, so now that we have these diseases coming up, these diseases which is here, we may not have the resources to actually purchase the tools to do learning. So yeah, it is actually affected us significantly because folks are worried about putting food in their bellies rather than buy computers to go to school.
With what you've said so far, can I confidently say that means the educational sector in Africa, we're not equipped enough to handle the COVID-19?
As a matter of fact, we are not equipped to the degree by which our population expects us to be.
Okay.
You know, we are not equipped to the degree because the means and the mode by which we use the resources to get to the people to protect us from this disease is work in progress. For example, my understanding is that within the Ghanaian setting, or I would say within the Greater Accra, or maybe the Accra setting, people are limited to 100 people per space, right?
Yeah.
There's no measurement as to the space. Here in North America, there are different buildings will require different maximum capacity. So if you have a 2,000 feet, it may require maybe up to 76 people to be in there. If you have a place like a stadium, then it means that the numbers will be a little bit more, right? Given the 2 meters or 6 feet stretch. So we have to find different ways by which it works best to our advantage, and then use different modes of technology to get things done, to get value for work or to get value for education. I'm a member of, again, I mentioned earlier about being a member of an organization which is trying to develop an MOU to do that. So, you know, there are ways by which this can happen. And I think the government has to really involve the corporate entities, you know, around Africa to find a medium ground to merge not only technology, but also, you know, health and safety and security systems to make sure that there's a smooth transition of either trajectory.
Okay, and throughout the year, I think one of the most used languages has to do with video calls, virtual classrooms, and that's okay for those in university, those in the secondary schools. What do you think about the virtual education for preschool, kindergarten, and lower primary schoolers?
It's a brilliant idea on paper, but in reality, it can be quite challenging when families cannot afford to buy a computer. Okay. You know, the computer, the machine itself is about close to $1,200, and that is the per capita income of many Ghanaians, right? Yeah, some folks will make $1,200 in an entire year. So to be able to really buy a tool that will assist in learning, particularly in preschool, which requires remote and online learning in our current state of affairs, it means that those families have to have the wherewithal to purchase these tools. The government can hire Ghanaian education and technology industry experts to lead efforts in creating an affordable medium to facilitate learning. Mobile companies can also be incentivized to recalibrate their platforms so that there's that smooth transition of services, you know, to make it happen.
Wow. So, based on this, I want to know a bit here. How did you set up the education and management consulting as the LLC, manages clientele during this time with your staff working from different locations? How did it work out for you? I'm not sure you're going to work, right?
No, and actually, I haven't been to work in a while. I've been working virtually for a very, very long time. This company was established in 2017, and it was born out of a necessity. As an educator, I became somewhat frustrated by curriculum committee members who was, you know, in my opinion, not totally understanding how students truly feel. So you have students who graduate, again, and they can't find work, okay? So if you graduate and you can't find work and you stay at home for no less than 6 months trying to look for work, and I think this is Equitable is the same thing in Ghana and elsewhere, right? When you graduate, there's no jobs for you. There is not adequate preparation of the students, of the learners, to know how to transition from the grades, the hard work, into making money. So I became quite frustrated about this. And as a result of the frustration, the company was established. And the mission of the organization that I created is to invest in organizations and communities through a global network of professional services using research-proven best practices and practical solutions to achieve satisfying results in business management, education, and public policy. Because I think these three work hand in hand. Again, to answer your question again, there was some level of frustration because, things were not moving as fast as they should move. Okay. And I took the bull by its own, I became transformative, so to speak, to establish it. And it has been one of the best things that I have done as a professional in this space. So
Doctor, so that means with this kind of work, you have to have a physical interaction with the stakeholders involved.
To a degree. There are certain components by which, especially with the space in working in the public policy section or space, because I serve on several boards. So we need to meet, and then we need to talk to donors to raise funds. We need to work with public officials to, especially pre-COVID, to see where we are with things. And now that we have the COVID times, of course, it also means that we have to have the right tools like personal protective equipment and sanitation and things like that to make sure we still work together. So yes, there's some level of physical interactivity. Yes.
So that was what I was driving into. I want to know. So how did this change in this COVID-19 time? Because you're not getting opportunity to meet your stakeholders physically. So how did it change? Were you working from home? How was the coordination between you and the various your staff and also the other clientele?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are working smarter and harder at the same time. Smarter because part of my job is to figure out which learning management system is best. So at the University of Virgin Islands, for example, it has been 100% converted online. So the institution, the buildings and all of that, there's nobody in it right now.
Wow.
So people are at home and they receive instruction from professors like myself, right? There are some students who prefer not, but now it's a mandate from the institution. So we use Blackboard and Moodle to provide instruction and learning. For other stakeholders, small and medium-sized companies that I work for, Articulate 360 Suite, any one of the suites are used to design program and to design learning tools, to design learning materials to facilitate smooth transition of learning and training. We also have online conferencing. We use social media like Instagram and the rest of them to be able to push our agenda across. So yes, it's not what we used to see before December of 2019, but it's a new normal that folks are beginning to understand and appreciate, and make room within themselves and their communities to accept.
So are we going to stick to the virtual world, or I'm talking about when the COVID-19 is over, are you going to stick to the virtual world, or are you going to have a hybrid of you going to the office and also working virtually?
The way we approach it is we go day by day. We don't know if this will be over or not. We remain cautiously optimistic. So whatever we are dealt with is what we roll with, right? So at the current moment, there is increased value because there's a lot more attention paid to services rendered, right? So when you're home, you're not looking at working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. anymore. You are looking at getting the work done efficiently and meeting deadlines. So, and meeting virtually helps to a degree because people now feel a lot more comfortable. In fact, there have been new studies to suggest that some industries prefer to have their employers give them that freedom to stay at home. And on the other hand, there are some industries which especially the millennials who work within those industries here in North America, they are getting quite bored staying at home because they prefer to want to intermingle and work with people. So there's that, balance between either. But at the end of the day, it's what the customer wants. So if the customer prefers to us to continue to work virtually, we give them that, and if they want different means by which we can meet and then, get the deals done and get, metrics sorted and all that type of stuff, then that gets done as well.
Wow. So in your opinion, what, as an industry leader, where are the opportunities, both economical and developmental, that education implementers could have taken advantage of during this COVID-19 period? And what do you think, as an industry leader, what did you take from this coronavirus season?
I think that coronavirus is an opportunity. I think it is a fantastic opportunity for people who work hard, people who have the knack to be creative, to smell good to smell good ideas, and hope that those ideas are like somebody will pay money for those ideas. Those are the people I'm talking about. So if you happen to be a type of person that you are not entrepreneurial, then COVID-19, you may perceive it negatively. But if you're a type of person, if you have the entrepreneurial gene or DNA inside of you, you will have to see it as that's why you really have to scream, "Thank you, Jesus," because it provides a new array of opportunities for people to pay top dollar because they don't want to be sick. But when you take that chance, using all kinds of safety, security, and health measures to attain value, you will make a lot more money, right? Because there are now new billionaires who 7 months ago, there were no billionaires, right? So yeah, it depends on how you look at it. It's all about the mind and how you perceive things. So again, if you're an entrepreneur, you look at COVID as hallelujah moment. It is certainly a hallelujah moment for me. In North America, we have the United States Small Business Association, US SBA, Small Business Administration, which has given loans in different varied volumes to small businesses, right? There are different segments of all of these, so that it can reignite the economy to sustain itself, to keep it moving, not to fluctuate the dollar, not to keep people out of work, and all these other things in place. So yeah, the government gave this opportunity for small business to take advantage of. Some companies did. I'm not 100% sure what the Ghanaian government had done on this particular metric or how it would do it, but there's way around it, right? And then more opportunities flourish. I mean, my establishing of my podcast is as a result of COVID-19. It was an idea that I've been thinking about for a while, but because of the situation as we have it, it said this is really the right time to go. And the possibility of hiring new young professionals globally to undertake my company's projects is also going to be unearthed. And this also, I guess, is an opportunity for me to actually see how best the mentees who are with the organization can benefit from.
So we're having an insightful interview with Dr. Yaw Amponsah Adoo, that's Africa's next, mentor and Africa's next superpower generation. Also, we are grateful to our sponsors, Bring the Silence and Voice to the Nation. We are grateful to you, the special audience, for constantly tuning in to Africa's Next programs. We are going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we continue to talk to our guests for today. This time around, we're entering into the entrepreneurial his entrepreneurial endeavors. Stay tuned. Remember, you're supposed to go to our social media page, our Instagram page, our Facebook page, and also our YouTube page, and comment on the mentor you would like to be paired with to learn a lot from. Stay tuned. We are back after this short commercial break.
Africa's emergence onto the world superpower stage has been in waiting for long. We believe that mentoring entrepreneurs and leaders to push Africa to that next level will cause Africa to break out onto that stage. This is why at Africa's Next, We believe in pairing mentees with seasoned mentors and industry experts, professionals and policymakers, social change leaders, and many more who are ready to push the next generation forward to make this happen. Meet your mentors and get mentored to go higher. Africa's Next, mentoring Africa's next superpower generation.